spiritual-minded people. There is nothing more precious to our life than that. And therefore, even the greatest kings in the Vedic times, they hanker and long for the opportunity to serve the sadhus. When Vishwamitra Muni came to the house, to the palace of Dasarath, how was he greeted? Let us look at the two people. Dasarath Maharaj was the king of Ayodhya. He was wearing elegant jewels, crown of gold. He was sitting on a beautiful throne with a palace of ivory and marble and rubies and diamonds decorating and lighting from all directions. And Vishwamitra Muni, he was wearing a simple loincloth, living on the ground in the jungles. He had no family and no money, nothing, except devotion to God. So it was only wealth. And when he came to the house of Dasarath Maharaj said, "Before you I am very poor. Although I'm a multi-billionaire by all material standards, you have the real wealth. You have bhakti. You have devotion. You have the shining effulgence of God always emanating from your life. What are all these material resources? It is not real wealth. It's impermanent." So therefore, Dasarath Maharaj got off of his throne and put this Muni on the throne. He washed his feet with his own hands, drank that water, and worshipped him. What the great men do in society to come and then will follow. Therefore we find in the times of real religion, great souls like Yudhisthira Maharaj, he humbled himself as a servant of Narada Muni. Ramchandra, whenever the sadhus would come to his kingdom, he explained that I am simply an obedient servant of the sadhus. That is my only good quality. That is the way he is there. When Sudama Vipra came to meet Krishna, the king of Dwarka, Krishna got off his throne and washed the sage's feet as his humble servant. All the great men in society humble themselves before the magnanimous wealth of those who are lovers of God. To show the proper example for all of us. There is nothing so precious, nothing so valuable. Sadhu Sangha Sadhu, with a pure devotee of the Lord, is more valuable than elevation to the heavenly kingdoms, than conquering the whole world, even more valuable than liberation itself. So therefore, by choosing the right association, and by becoming that association, most of you people are in family life. You are raising children. However good your traditions are, beware the influence of the West is creeping into your society. Cinemas, rock and roll, American dress, drugs, and so many illicit sex. Unless we provide our children with sacred association, with pure spiritual values in their life, by our example, a child will never listen to what you say. They will hear what they see you do. That is why Lord Rishabdev said, Pitana sasyat janina sasyat, that in the eyes of God, you have no business taking the position of a parent unless you're prepared to live a spiritual life in such a way that your example will liberate your child from all suffering forever. The first and foremost position of a parent is to give that child the opportunity to know God and love God and do real good for the society. order for us to give, we must first obtain. By associating with saintly persons and by chanting the names of God, we develop a spiritual foundation that we can build from. And whether we are business executives, or doctors, or lawyers, or engineers, or architects, or scientists, or students, or politicians, or government agents, or housewives, whatever our position is, whatever our function to the society may be, if we develop a spiritual foundation through the process of associating with holy men and chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord, then that purity of consciousness, that compassion, that mercy, and that love of God and love of creation will be the motivating force behind everything we do. This is the need of the world for such people, of such divine integrity. This is not a sectarian idea. This is the true meaning of religion. Thank you very much. Is there any questions?
Why we find different religions? Why we find different religions propagating different philosophy? If the purpose of life is one, then why Quran is saying something, Bible is saying something, Bhagavad Gita is saying something? And it appears there is contradiction.
Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Avipranaya sadhunam vinashaya chatuskratam dharma samstapanaradhaya samrupami juge juge. That in order to protect the pious, elevate the pious, to annihilate the miscreants, and to reestablish the principles of religion, I appear again and again and again. Now, the various detailed differences in the religions of today are a matter of kala desha and patra, according to the Vedic philosophy. Religion, or the pure science of spirituality, is presented according to the time, the place, and the people. You cannot explain the same thing to everyone in the same way. It is an axiomatic truth that things equal to the same things are equal to each other. Now, I may have a book that says 2 plus 2 is 4. Now, my dear friend, Dr. Reside, he may have a book that says 3 plus 1 is 4. Now, we may compare notes, and we may get in a very bad argument. My book is the authority. The only way to reach 4 is by adding 2 and 2. And he says, you're in illusion. You are being misguided by Satan. The only way to approach 4 is 3 plus 1. We can condemn each other, hate each other, we can kill each other over who's right. Huh? No. Mr. Muppet, well, he's an educated man. He knows the real nature of 4. He knows you can approach 4 by either 2 plus 2 or 3 plus 1. So for him, there's no problem. Well, our problem is simply we do not understand the conclusion. We only understand our own conception of the process. But a real religious man who understands the conclusion of his own religion will see the same conclusion in the other religions of the world. Another example, there is a science of mathematics. Now, in the first standard, what do you teach children? 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. 3 plus 3 is 6. Still remember. Basic arithmetic. Now, in the college graduate level of mathematics. Say a person has been going to school for 15 years. He's working on his PhD. He comes into the classroom, and the teacher says, now listen, I want you to take notes and learn this. 1 plus 1 is 2. Huh? What will that person do? He'll probably walk out. He'll be insulted. What is this nonsense? I learned that 30 years ago. Now what happens if you teach the person in the first standard advanced trigonometry? Huh? He'll never grasp it. He'll never understand. First you have to learn the basics. So different people in different parts of the world in different times, they're on a particular spiritual level of consciousness. For instance, in the Holy Quran, Muhammad explains you should not have sex with mother or sister. Huh? Because the time, if you study Arabic history, it was socially completely accepted to have sex with your mother and sister. There was nothing wrong with it. It's very convenient, in fact. So therefore, he had to tell them, you are forbidden from this day on to ever do it. Now, that is what they need to hear. Before they can understand higher spiritual concepts, they have to first give up these gross sinful activities. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna was speaking to Arjuna. Arjuna was a very highly educated, very cultured, and very religious man of great integrity. Now, Krishna would have said to Arjuna on the chariot, he would have said, Arjuna, don't have sex with Kunti from this day on. Arjuna would have probably walked off the chariot right then and there and said, get out of here, forget you. It would be an insult. It would be an insult of his integrity as a religious man. So therefore, according to Jesus Christ, he spoke so many basic moral principles. He said, I have much more to tell you, but you cannot bear it. So therefore, the path of Sanatana Dharma is the same path, leading to the same goal, but according to the people, and according to their level of ability to comprehend and absorb. You're given a certain quantity, a certain level of information, but there's no difference. Is basic arithmetic right and trigonometry wrong, or vice versa? They are both absolutely correct, but they're different levels. So if you study the various religions of the world with an understanding of the goal and the essence of life, you will see that there is absolutely not a single contradiction. There are simply differences in presentation which were necessary for the people of the time. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'll ask. Seems to be the solution to all the problems. How comes that it happens that even for a long time, when chanting of Hare Krishna or any other religion, it doesn't have any effect on the problems to the other person? Does it only help to the person who is chanting in the long run? Or does it have any effect for the other problems which are being created outside with that man along with the society? I mean, ultimately, what is the effect, what is the time period? I mean, it is only chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra that is going to affect and solve the problems. Or is there any other way by which it could be approached?
Chanting of Hare Krishna in the sublime means purifying our consciousness and awakening our godly qualities. Now let us take, for example, one person. His Divine Grace A.C. Radhanath Swami Prabhupada, who happens to be our beloved spiritual master. He was one man. Because of his pure heart and his love for God, he had great compassion for all living beings. At the age of 70 years old, after he responsibly wound up all of his family charges. He came to America. No money, no friends. He only had one thing. He had love and compassion for all of his neighbors. And based on that love and compassion, he suffered great sacrifice, great inconvenience, heart attacks, poverty. But it didn't stop him because he was motivated by love. And the result was millions of people throughout the world today were saved from the most sinful, ignorant existence, and they are dedicating their lives to the loving service of the Lord. Household people, they are dedicating their lives in their Grihastha ashram and making it an ashram. Grihastha ashram, what does that mean? There's 4 ashrams: Brahmacharya ashram, Grihastha ashram, Vanaprastha ashram, and Sannyasa ashram. The definition of an ashram is a holy place where spiritual virtues are being propounded. Now, the Grihastha ashram literally means the house of the family. Right? That means every family is meant to make their home an ashram, a spiritual sanctuary. Srila Prabhupada made millions of homes a spiritual sanctuary. And he also helped inspire many others to go out and just spread the glorious word of the goal of life. This is one man. How his pure consciousness affected the world. Jesus Christ was one man. Look at the impact he had on the world. Muhammad was one man. Look at the impact he had on the world. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, look at the impact he had on the world. The fact is, if we become pure-hearted, whether it is a great impact or a small impact, we can be doing our part according to our capacity in the mission of God to show compassion and to create prosperity in the hearts of men. And without becoming God-conscious ourselves, if you have nothing, you have nothing to give.
For someone to practice or follow any religion, is it not sufficient that one do his or her work properly and be good to others? Is that not enough? I mean, there is no need to go to temples or for that matter chant mantras or, I mean, what is the need? As long as one is good to others, that's it. There is no need to practice.
Bhagavad Gita Krishna describes there are 3 modes of material nature. There is the mode of ignorance, which is symptomized by those persons who are very lazy.